Hello and welcome to New Videocast. I'm Leila Swan and I lead communications at New. Today we welcome Cristina Junqueira. Cris is Nubank's co-founder and chief growth officer. She is now taking on the role of CEO of our emerging business in the United States, and she's here to talk to us about building our global brand and its long-term business impacts. Welcome back to New Videocast, Cris.
Thank you, Leila. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone.
So, Cris, we started the year hot and heavy with not one, but two major global announcements. We partnered with Inter Miami soccer team with over 900 million fans. And we partnered with Mercedes-AMG PETRONAS Formula One team with over 827 million fans. Can you tell us why we're doing this?
Yeah, of course. I think there are two parts of that question. One is like, why are we doing this? And the second one is, why are we doing this now, right? On the why, let me start with the why now. Brand building takes a long time. And we've been talking a little bit about how our next chapter is going to be about going beyond Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. And for that, we're going to need to build the brand that we've built initially in Brazil and then into these other countries. And that's work that takes a lot of time. It's a multi-year process, right? It's funny because somebody asked, well, why are you making these investments? You don't even have a business there. Yes, exactly. If we had a business, if people knew us, we probably wouldn't need this, right? So it's very exciting to be able to partner with these teams, right? Like with these franchises, and be able to already set the foundation for us to build the love brand that we have in Brazil, right? We started some 13 years ago, and it's incredible for us to be the most admired brand in Brazil, the most loved brand in Brazil. And depending on the ranking, some of them will place us as the most valuable brand in Brazil. Some of them will place us amongst like the top 3 or top 5. But regardless, that's competing against brands that have been here for decades. Some of them have been here for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. And suddenly we're as valuable as they are. Like, it's just mind blowing. So this is work that's going to take years. It's going to require some foundation. That's why we're starting early, right? And why are we doing like these specific deals? We spent the whole year last year, or even before that, trying to map all the different territories that we could tap into to start building this brand internationally. And we looked into sports, we looked into culture, we looked into entertainment, we looked into like many different aspects. And we very carefully chose these two. So let's start with Mercedes, which was the one that we announced first. So F1 is truly a global platform. Like, there's no other sport that, you come into a team and they're immediately competing globally, right? All eyeballs, like from all over the world, are there like in this one championship across like 24 races around the circuit. And we truly global teams, global drivers, from all over the world. And it's a sport that is growing also a lot. And it's also one that adds immediate value to our current operations. Mm-hmm. Because for those that don't know, actually Brazil is the number 1 country for F1 in terms of number of fans. Mexico is also pretty high on the list because the races in São Paulo and Mexico City are very traditional. Our races have been around like the F1 calendar for a very long time. So there's a huge fan base. In Brazil, we have a long history of Brazilian drivers.
It's a national passion. Yeah.
Absolutely. I grew up to Senna, but not just him, right? Like we have the Fittipaldi family. We've had Rubens Barrichello that ran a race along with Schumacher, and we've had Felipe Massa since then. So there's a long tradition of so many Brazilian drivers that have built this national passion beyond soccer, right? Mm-hmm. And Mercedes is a phenomenal team. When you look since they've been in F1, like in their since they've came back, which is a little under 20 years, no one has their track record. No one has won as many races as they have or as many championships as they have. So not only they have a very strong performance track record, but we're also very impressed by them, by Toto, by the drivers. We're big fans of the team, of their personalities, of their leadership style, the way that they run things. Like they're great people to be partners with. Very competitive, very competitive.
And not unlike us, right?
Not unlike us. That's something that we share. But at the same time, very thoughtful. That really want to build this true partnership. We especially like the fact that Mercedes is the team on the grid that has the fewer amount of partners They cherry pick the people that they'll do business with, that they'll bring into the team.
Got to have that alignment, right?
Absolutely. They're very keen on ensuring that we have an alignment of values, very keen on ensuring that this brand is going to connect, it's going to resonate well with their audience, and they're especially interested in our fandomship, in how people love our brand in the markets that we operate in, and also in bringing like this B2C aspect into Formula One that has been historically a territory of more like B2B brands and B2B activations. Yeah. So we're very excited to bring something very interesting to life with them. And then the second one, oh my God, Inter Miami. Can you believe that? Can you believe that we have Messi on our team, and this phenomenal team? So similar story. So soccer is, the number one sport in the world, right? Like it's a world sport. Inter Miami specifically, while it is technically a team in the US League, in the MLS, it's truly a global franchise. And one of the things, like we spent, the whole year of last year, like a whole of 2025, discussing this partnership with them and building how this was, and shaping how this was going to look like. And I remember I went to Rome because it was the Jubilee year last year. And I was in the middle of the Vatican, inside St. Peter's Basilica. And I look around, there's this family of like South Korean people. And with 3 kids, all 3 wearing Messi jerseys from Inter Miami.
Cool.
So like you don't get more like global than that, like you're in Rome with this like South Korean family where they're, so it truly is like this international franchise as well. Inter Miami, similarly to F1, they have fans in Brazil, in Mexico, in Colombia. Inter Miami jersey is to the degree that we know, the number 1 jersey sold in Mexico. It's super well sold in Brazil too. Like they have a huge fan base, and in Latin America, obviously, and in a bunch of different markets that we're also interested in tapping into. And also the layers of the partnership are very interesting. We're not only going to be main partner of the team, we're going to be on the jersey that Messi is going to retire on, which is also something brand new that we worked with them and with the league to bring to life.
That's amazing.
So we're going to be the first partner to be on the back of the jersey. We're going to be naming their stadium, which looks phenomenal. Like it's such a beautiful stadium and will offer such a phenomenal experience to guests when they come for live experiences, not just the matches, but also all the different concerts and events that they're going to be able to host. What else? This is part of Miami Freedom Park, the district, that is going to be the new upcoming like cool district in Miami, which is a city that has become like this international destination. This is attracting so much wealth. So anyway, like I'll pause here because I could talk about this for hours.
And I could listen to it, but I'm really
I want you to ask the questions, but I could talk about this for hours.
So we're getting ready to see our brand on the soccer pitch, on the racetracks, on the jerseys. Can you give us a little bit of a taste of what it means for our customers?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that I told everyone, I guess, but let's take F1. F1 is known to be a bit of an expensive experience for people, right? There's this stat that says that less than 1% of fans of F1 will ever in their lifetime go to a race, So we're talking about over 100 million people worldwide. Less than 1% of them are ever going to be, have the chance. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have the advantage that it's also nicer to watch on TV, I would argue. It's one of the best parts to watch on TV because like I've been on tracks like my fair amount of times. Cars are racing like very fast. You can barely understand like who's passing you by. So it's actually a great experience for you to watch at home. And the way that we're thinking about this is like, sure, we're going to have some opportunities in key races. If you think about São Paulo, Mexico City, Miami is another one that we're going to activate this year, to bring guests. But there's only so many people that we're going to be able to bring. I think the true value that we're going to be able to add is like activating these assets off tracks. Mm-hmm. So we're very excited about creating experiences for fans beyond the racetracks, like in the cities, maybe where the races are coming, or even in cities that are not getting a race, but maybe they're getting an experience, that fans can enjoy. And of course, digitally, right? Like we're very excited about creating content, creating experiences, creating ways that the fans can interact with those franchises and with our brand in a way that is very different, that is unique, that will allow them to really experience the passion that we want to bring into this in a very different and unique way. So we're also working on merchandise, which is something very exciting. Yeah. That's something else that people crave. It's very hard to have access to merchandise of F1 in some of our markets. It's often limited supply, it's very expensive. So we're going to try to, to work with them on interesting pieces. Anyway, there are many angles that fans can expect that we're going to bring this to life into them.
I love that we're going to have this focus on bringing it to the customers, right?
That's the plan.
Great. Cris, these are major investments, right? And wanted to ask you about what could be a seeming contradiction here. Nubank has famously grown through word of mouth and low marketing investments.
Yeah.
We have a beloved brand already.
Yes.
So why are we deciding as a business to make these major investments?
Yeah, this can look a little different, right? Like than what we've done historically. But the way that I would think about this is like, it's not different, it's additive, right? So everything that helped us build our brand, like in the beginning in Brazil and then, in our other markets, in terms of having a phenomenal product, treating customers extremely well, like designing the customer experience for people to really be like, delighted with, the touch points that they have with the brand, like all that is still here, and I would argue, even more so, as we think about the next markets, because the world has been trying to catch up with us, So when we did this some 12, 13 years ago, this was very new. No one had thought about this, but we've been giving people a lot of like references over the years for them to try to copy us. So I think in a way, there's a lot of what we've done that we're going to keep, that we're going to enhance, that we're going to boost. And we do expect, as David says, that in a world full of choices, customers are gonna choose the best product, the best experience. So we continue to deeply believe that. But at the same time, we are in a position today to accelerate that curve, to accelerate the awareness curve, right? Like to accelerate how fast people are gonna know that we exist, how fast they're gonna hear about us, how fast they're gonna understand what is it that we stand for. So we are making some investments, like the ones that we described. But the way that I think about them, they're like, first, like they're all above the line, as we call it. So they're about like the brand experience, the brand foundation, the brand equity, and what we stand for. They're not like bottom line conversion, like very aggressive. So that's a piece that we're not in a rush to build just yet, So it's really about like building this foundation of the brand, fully acknowledging that, especially when we think about the US, which is the next market that we're coming into, is a very competitive market that is very hard to cut through the noise. Yeah. So we're really looking at this in a way that tries to answer the question, what is the unique angle that we can tap into, that we can come into, that will allow us to stand out and that will resonate with people, and the way you do that is meeting people where they want to be, not interrupting them, not trying to get their attention while they're like being entertained. It's about like meeting them where they are.
Yeah, it's not more noise, right? It's
not more noise or interruptions, right? It's actually offering them something that they're interested in, that they're going to enjoy. So that's the spirit of what is it that we're trying to do here.
That's amazing. So Cris, we taking this back to our core markets, right? This is an investment that has high value, high return, will help us also in Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, where we're doing phenomenally well, right? In Brazil, we are now the largest private financial institution in number of customers. In Mexico, we are on the finish line to get our banking license, and you can tell us about growth in these countries. But also, how do you balance, the company's focus in these core markets, which also have huge opportunities for growth still, and going into new markets?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and something that we've meditated a lot, on before we decided to take this next step. We've always told this story about like Mexico, even when we first went to, a country beyond Brazil, and we started thinking about Mexico many years before, but we felt that we needed to earn the right to go to Mexico. Like we felt that we needed to have things in Brazil a bit more, stable. Like we want to have like a clear path for profitability, for growth. That's when we decided, to take the first step in Mexico. This is not unlike the story of how we're thinking about this now. We've been thinking a lot about this for a very long time. We feel that Brazil is in a great place, extremely profitable, extremely high ROEs, which is great. Mexico, super on track, about to become a bank, to be operational, but also with a balance with a book that keeps growing in a very profitable way. Not yet turning a profit because of all the growth, but in a very profitable way that we're bringing that growth. Colombia has also been doing really well, and now feels like a good time for us to take the next leap. Having said that, the way that we think about these investments, again, one of the things that we're very excited about them is how they add value for Brazil, Mexico, Colombia from the get-go, right? So it's not just about like putting a lot of money against our international expansion further than those three countries, but those are actually investments that we're going to be able to amortize across our current operations. Take Brazil, for instance, right? We've been building our Ultravioleta brand for a while now. Not for a while, I would say for 3 years now. And this is a phenomenal, those two assets are phenomenal assets for the high income segment in Brazil that we're going to be able to work with, right? In Mexico, same thing. Like Mexico is a big soccer country, is a big F1 country, people are going to be very excited to be able to have access in some shape or form in the way that we're going to bring the fandomship to them. And this is going to help us accelerate the awareness curve, the consideration curve for the brand in Mexico. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about like how we're positioning these investments and in the moment that Brazil, Mexico, Colombia are in Brazil, we're at a moment in which although we've been operating regulated entities for over 10 years now, 10 years, and operating as a banking conglomerate for a while now. We're also gonna, acquire, or we're gonna get a bank license this year, like the final like cherry on the top of our regulatory structure this year. We're about to become a bank in Mexico, so very interesting moments, very interesting mature moments for us to layer these investments on top of, being able to amortize them while we're also paving the way for the future.
Got it. No, super clear about the timing and about earning the right. But can you tell us? Walk us back into the decision process. Why the United States? You mentioned it's the most competitive place in the world.
It is. The reality is, like what we've learned after doing 3 of them, is that building a new country takes a lot of work. It's not easy, right? Of course, we're getting better, and building Mexico was better than building Brazil, and building Colombia was better than building Mexico. And we're working really hard so that building the US is going to be better than, the previous ones. But it's still a lot of work, of course. These are regulated sectors. We have chosen. There are different fintechs out there that they choose a different path. They're not necessarily too keen on being regulated. We're on the other end of that spectrum, right? Like we've always embraced regulation. We've been operating regulated entities for over 10 years now. So the way that we do things takes a lot of effort. We wanted to find the moment in which we could afford to invest that capacity, which is not a big distraction to the company. We have less than 10% of the resources of the company actually dedicated to international expansion, platformization. But at the same time, we said, well, if we're going to put in the effort, why not go for the opportunity that is the biggest opportunity? Because, building a country like the US, that is huge, is the largest financial services market out there, it's almost the same work as building a much smaller country that is 5% of it. So even a sliver of the US market would be more meaningful to us than any other country that we could tap into right now, right? And even a sliver of it could make this business as relevant for us as Brazil is. Because the reality is, there's one figure that we're always blown away by, which is in the next 5 years, the U.S. financial services market is going to grow the size of a Brazil, right? You have states like Texas or California, even Florida is about to surpass the GDP of Brazil.
Wow.
So when we put things into perspective, we don't have to get to where we are in Brazil, in the U.S. for this to be meaningful. Quite the contrary. We don't expect to come in and in 10 years be where we are in Brazil, where 60% of the adult population is a customer. Sure, if we get there, it would be phenomenal, amazing. Oh my God. But the reality is even 5-10 million customers in the US already going to be so meaningful in terms of revenue, in terms of net income, in terms of what we can bring to the company.
Chris, can you tell us a little bit about finding these customers in the U.S.? You mentioned a lot about, cross-border opportunity.
Yeah, of course. So it's only natural that when we come into the U.S., people that have heard of us or even have been our customers, they're going to be the first ones to use our products, right? By the way, they're already asking us for it.
They have been for a while.
Oh my God. There isn't a day that goes by that I'm not on social media or whatever. And I'm getting inbounds of customers saying, when are you coming today? I would say that's true for many countries. I get that from Portugal, from Canada, from Australia, from places in Europe, from everywhere. But in the US is amazing because the concentration of Brazilians, of Mexicans, even Colombians is very the Hispanic population in the US is huge, right? It's the largest subsegment of the US population. So there's a lot of people there. They already know us. They already trust us. They're suffering with the complexity and the fees and everything else, that we know that isn't great about the US banking experience. And they're eager to have us. So it's only natural that's going to be our starting point, right? It's only natural that those are going to be our first customers. Now, we think that what we're building will resonate much more broadly, right? Because the reality is everyone is suffering, with a lot of high fees, hidden fees, writing checks and waiting for them to become, having to go to branches and horrible customer support. And those are problems that we know how to solve, that we've been solving for the past 13 years, So we're cautiously optimistic about our ability to solve the problems that we feel have been normalized in the US, that people are kind of numb to it. They're kind of they're resigned. They're that's just how things are. Well, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that way.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to it.
I know. You're a customer that's been in the US.
I've been nagging you for a while.
Because Leila lives in the US and she's, she knows what her product looks like in Brazil. So anyway.
So Chris, late January, we had an important milestone moment. We received a conditional approval from the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, to form a national bank in the United States.
I know.
Tell us what that means, and do you have any updates you can give us?
Yeah, of course. And in 121 days, can you imagine that? It's unthinkable.
We love breaking records.
Oh my God. It's very few of these licenses have been granted ever, right? In the first place. So one thing that is important to note is this is not. There are simpler, easier licenses to get. We went for the gold standard of banking charters, which is a federal national bank charter, right? With the OCC, because we know how important it is for us to embrace regulation, for us to make sure the regulators are very aware and comfortable with our business model. What is it that we're doing? That brings a lot of confidence even for customers, and also it allows us much more flexibility in terms of what we can offer, right? We don't have to be so restrictive in terms of our business model, in terms of the product that we're going to be allowed to have. So we're very excited about the conditional approval. That's just the first step. Now we're in the stage that it's called the bank organization phase, that we have up to 18 months to open the doors of the bank. There's a lot that we've already been building, of course, but we got to wrap up all the different pieces that need to be in place the day that we open the doors of the bank, the proverbial doors, right? Because we won't have any
our
branches,
digital
guys.
doors,
the digital doors of the bank, right? So there's people that we need to hire. There's additional policies that we need to make sure are in place. There, some regulatory reports that we got to work, and amend to make sure that they're appropriate to the right standard. So there are a few things that we got to make sure are in place. We got to capitalize the bank. So that needs to happen within the next 12 months. So there are a few things we have a punch list that we got to go through before we open the digital doors of the bank. But it's very exciting. Can you imagine in up to 18 months, we're going to be opening the doors of Nubank North America, Nubank USA.
I can hardly wait.
Oh my God.
Chris, so I know you've upped and moved with your family to the United States.
I did.
Just to lead this business there.
I did.
Tell me more about what it means for us to make this decision to have a founder-led company in the United States.
I know. I mean, and people ask. I remember I met some people shortly after I moved to the U.S. and they were like, "Are you crazy? You know, at this stage, like you're starting over, like doing this all over again." I'm like, "Yeah." You know, I'm crazy for many reasons. That's just one of them.
Just one
piece of it.
Yeah.
I did bring husband, 4 kids in tow, 1 baby, you know, because Leo was like 6 months old when we moved to the US. Yes, it's been a big change for the family. But I think this speaks to the commitment, you know, that we have like to this project. And I was just telling, so I have my team here with us this week, as you know. Everyone working in the U.S. project, and I was telling them what a privilege it is to be able to lead this. You know, what a privilege it is to be able to do this with them, because like not only it is a privilege to build Nubank, right? Like in a similar way that it was 12 years ago, 13 years ago when we started, but being able to do this now, cherry picking the people. Being able to do this with all the learnings, you know, with everything that we've learned over the past years, you know, everything that customers told us that they love, you know, or that they don't like, that we can improve on, you know, being able to do this extremely well capitalized, because the money that we raised on the IPO is still sitting at the holding company, you know, because we've been very profitable since then and we haven't had to touch that. So being able to do that from this position, extremely well capitalized, with a lot of learnings, with this brand, with this team, is a dream. You know, I couldn't wish for anything more. Like, I'm just so excited. It's such an important endeavor. It's again, you know, it's a renewed life project. You know, one that I'm very, very, very excited, even to see my kids growing up to watch. You know, so very, very exciting. Very exciting.
Cris, we have a lot of excitement to manage.
I know.
And our customers are very excited too.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, where can people, you know, get their updates and get involved and know more about these expansion plans?
Yeah, of course. So 2 things that you can do today. So first, go on Instagram, follow @new.usa. So that's where we're sharing the news and we're like building, you know, the excitement, and every single piece of news, like we're sharing there, like we share the conditional approval news. So there's a lot there. And there's also new.co/2026. So that's the URL where we're concentrating the announcements. So we announced the Mercedes partnership there. We've announced the Inner Miami partnership there. And everything new is gonna come into that URL. So stay tuned. A lot more to come, a lot that I can't yet talk about, but soon enough, more to come.
Absolutely. Let's keep this confidential stuff confidential.
Yes,
for now.
For now.
Well, Cris, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yes.
And thank you to our listeners for staying till the end.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. See you soon.